Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast, episode 73. In this episode, I speak with my good friend, Joel Cocciolone. Joel is an actor, an artist, a writer, a director, and a brilliant filmmaker, and this was his second appearance on the podcast. I'm really grateful Joel came on. It was a deep philosophical conversation, and I really think a lot of you will get a lot out of it. The book of the episode is called The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. This is actually one I'm currently reading, and it's really good. He takes Buddhism, Christianity, different philosophies of the world, and he's trying to find the common ground between all of them. Really good book. I highly recommend The Happiness Hypothesis by Jonathan Haidt. If you want to listen to the podcast, be sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. If you want to watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/@thesamdeverpodcast. Here's my conversation with Joel. Joel Cocciolone, welcome to the Sam Dever Podcast again.
Thanks. Yeah. Second time. Now I'm physically here.
No, and honestly,
my connection last time was.
I know we had Zoom.
Wonky.
It was doing good. It's just like this. I'm really looking forward to this one. And
me too.
You saw me on my phone earlier. I screenshotted something you had put on Instagram stories, and I can't find it, but we'll find its way back into this conversation.
Oh yeah, okay.
It's what stemmed me to call you right away when I saw it. It was about basically economics and the structure of society and capitalism and all that.
Yeah.
But we have time to get into that here.
Yeah, I mean, capitalism is an interesting thing now. I guess when more so feudalism than capitalism, I guess nowadays. But yeah, we'll get into it. I mean, everything. It's interesting that we all kind of, and I think this is one of humanity's big problems, is that we see everything as these like unilateral problems in difference to all the other problems, when they're literally just from the same tree, branching from the same trunk. It's all just the concept and the construct that we all agreed to like proceed by. How it's faulting in its evolution, and we're just we don't have a lot of time as people in general, so we're just kind of like reaching on to one problem at a time and looking at it all like, oh, we have to take care of this problem, but it's just all surface deep, But again, yeah, we'll get into that, man.
Well, I mean, now I kind of opened up that rabbit hole. But yeah, it is one of those things. It's like I see the good things that can come from capitalism, but at the same time, there's also another side to it too. Like you have to keep feeding the machine.
Sure. I mean,
more and more and more, and not everyone benefits from it.
That's, I was talking about this earlier. Really what we have is a lack of evolution when it comes to the inception of like the internet, vast technology, right? We're still kind of living in these archaic traditions and constructs, and because they're kind of held on by the elitist and the 1%, that holds a great deal of our resources, and because of that, they kind of have a great deal of power within our society's proceedings, So those ideas that got them to the top were ideas that have become, in my opinion, and I would hope in many's, a bit stagnant with the evolution of society, with now, technology like the internet and social media. I mean, because the internet, being the great enigma, allowing us to be closer together while being further apart, is a very strange concept. But what it does is it allows, movement of knowledge, which is kind of the key to everything. So then people talking and discussing and saying, hey, like this isn't working, a lot of us are going through these hardships, and now we're seeing videos of it, on TikTok and Instagram and social media, and people are like discussing it, and it's strange how we're kind of still moving at this rate of having so many in an impoverished state, being, I don't know the exact statistics, but somewhere probably around like 80% of our country is probably below the poverty line. And that's just wild, right? When we have plenty of resources and plenty of of intellectual prowess as a society to advance, flourishingly, and what we're seeing now is that our younger generations are just kind of seeing how hard our older generations have worked, and of like, oh well, we got to abide by this structure and get a job and go to school and get a job and then work 9 to 5 and make money to just barely scrap by, or scrape by, and they're kind of just not seeing the the benefits of that, right? When they can do, various things on the internet, make videos, and make a bunch of money, and we can see that, within the kind of the paradigm shift of us as a people. Now we look at our kind of our wealthy as our most intelligent, which I think is one of our biggest faltered steps, within our new technology, driven world, because we used to have our kind of our geniuses and our wealthy, we have our what we were talking about earlier, our Oppenheimers and Einsteins and Teslas. And then we had, the Rockefellers and, the Kennedys, and it was a different, we didn't look at them as like these geniuses because they made all this money. They were just the wealthy. And these geniuses were kind of like the not so wealthy, but kind of rubbed elbows with those people. But we didn't see them as like this wealthy elitist. But now we've kind of molded them into this one idea of like, if you have a bunch of money, you're a genius, with our Elon Musks and our Bezos and guys like that. And in my opinion, I don't really find them to be, the most brilliant of minds, and I think there are so many other actual brilliant minds that are so vastly capable of doing amazing things that are just kind of like out of the light, because they're not the wealthiest, or they're not working on projects that seem suitable for like, capitalistic advancement, for the big companies that are already in existence. And that bothers me. And then you see it within like our younger generations. They're like, well, why do I need to go to school to get this education that I'm not going to be utilizing in the sense that I'm learning it, as we're kind of reciprocating back into society in the way that I'm learning it, so it's just kind of like pointless memorization in public school, and then they're told to, go to college and then waste that time that you're young and being able to do a great deal of things where I feel like you should be exploring and learning at the same time, so I think they should be hand in hand. I think college should, sorry, going off on a tangent, I think college should just be paying for people to study and move about, for culture and wisdom. But we see this younger generation, it's like they're not, I don't, that, we see them just like, we just don't give a fuck about how you guys are doing it, like, and why I'm saying that, because they're making money, like off TikTok and cryptocurrencies, and you look playing with the stock markets with apps, like with Robinhood and things of that nature, like. And so it's like, if that's the main idea, like as a capitalistic, like over capitalistic, society, like it's the achievement of making money, right? Like even just gathering, just amassing crazy amounts of it that are unnecessary, is like the overall goal. Not even doing anything with that money, more so than just hoarding it and having that amount, right? Getting a certain level of an accolade, like, oh, I'm now a millionaire, oh, I'm now a billionaire. It's not like, oh, why was the one that cured cancer with, that money, that's a very far stretch. But I mean, like, was the one that finally gave people the hoverboard, you know what I mean? Like, people that are doing things with this, because it should be a financial tool, right? Like that's the idea. But that it's kind of like, almost seems like we're so anti these new ideas and new platforms and business, and into and I think, and what I'm kind of beating around the bush or saying too much of, saying too many words to get to, is that, humans evolve through irony, and the irony of our younger generation at this point going like, you know what, we don't give a fuck, you know, like I mean, I was reading the other day that I guess this is their generation is like the youngest, the younger generation is the most poorly, you know, tested, have done the worst or done the worst on standardized testing in any generation before them. And to me, it's like, oh, well, you know, our kids are a bunch of dumb kids, but at the same time, it's just they're just not falling into line with what they see is not a great idea. It's just not kind of working in its best of ability. So they're just kind of like, fuck it. And I think that they'll kind of start moving away, like as a whole, from everything. Like, you know, they don't. It's like you ask these younger generations about politics, and they, you know, don't know anything about it. They don't care at all. You know, they don't subscribe to what's prescribed. They don't subscribe to what's going on. And I think that that'll help in the end. Like it'll show that, oh, or this idea is not reaching enough masses, you know, something has to change and maybe we'll get another party out of it. You know, maybe it'll collapse on itself, you know, maybe with another politician having a freeze, you know, a mental breakdown
We
on
were
it
just talking about that
today with,
before.
you know,
That was
like,
crazy.
not having term limits and like
Yeah.
all these things. Like it's, you know, showing that the system that's been perpetuated for some time now is not a cohesive ideology within the face of new technology and new advancement, you know. And instead it's like we're arguing about like that advancement as if it's like it's designing itself, you know, and it's not us doing it, like making it because we're going to essentially use it for our own benefit, you know.
As far as like AI goes,
Yeah, AI or you know, just algorithmic, you know, instructing and things of that nature. It's right now it's such a quick you know, what's the best way to describe it? It's a well, within the world of like acting and film and why everybody's on why the writers and the actors are on strike, it definitely needs to find its place within the structure of how things work, you know, because right now it's run rampant is what
Right.
I was trying to get to.
It's Uncharted Territory.
Yeah, and it's you know, and to me it's somewhat foolish that we've been literally writing movies about it for so long that it's like it snuck up on us, you know. It's like, what, come on, like we've known that this is all going to be possibilities. Like we should have started, you know, having discussions, you know, long before this and getting studios to, you know, adhere to changes quicker, you know, and it's just the world is in such a strange place right now. Like I find our new advancements that are like overwhelming our world somewhat kind of elementary in the like creativity of it. Like it's like, for instance, drones, right? We've had helicopters forever and we just didn't think to make smaller ones, like little smaller ones with various, you know, various other blades, you know, like it's kind of mind baffling when you think like that was really a brand new concept, you know, that when we've had that simple idea of the rudder for so long, you know, I mean, even back to Da Vinci, you know, but after it's almost like we put the carriage before the horse. It's off on a separate tangent, but
these are great tangents.
It's just strange. It's not strange that maybe it's just strange to me that we created a helicopter before we created a drone, right? And then the drone was some like marvel of a you know,
I see intellectual feat. I never thought of it like that.
Like we went bigger, then went smaller, and we're like, oh, brilliant. It was like, what are you talking about?
This was way more complex.
What in the hell? So I don't know, man. And then like, you know, telephone technology, it's literally the same thing over and over and over. And we still don't have a hoverboard. So I'm upset with technology. No, but anyways.
Back to the Future lied to us, man.
Yeah, well, but you know, the problem is that if you've had the chance to spend any time on one of these like great universities or colleges like Harvard or even MIT, or especially MIT, if you just walk through the campus or maybe sit down in like a cafeteria or eatery area, and just kind of overhear a conversation, you're left wondering, how is there still problems? Because like I just overheard like 4 kids, like on their lunch break, solve homelessness with 3 different like ideas. Like it's strange to me that we have such hardship and suffering and problematic cities and areas when we do have so many brilliant minds that could be lending their thoughts to these problems. It shows to me it's like the strongest like hand in the argument of like there's got to be a overall reason. Like people just don't want this to happen, and the conspiracy theorist, like, oh, there's people, there's gatekeepers and people, the big business and 5, rich white men that run everything. And it's like, well, it's hard not to think that in some regards when it's like nothing's changing and it's like the same 5 businesses. And it's like, you get called lazy if you sit and think. It's just it's insane. It's like there should be a new Facebook every day or a new like Instagram every day. Like you're telling me that these people are that much smarter than all of our other like young minds and geniuses, or in any of them. It's and I can contest to that, being someone that works in a broad range of industries, and like one being like development of tech and design of various functional technology. It's like you just get to a point where it's like, well, I don't. It's so much. Where am I going to go from here? Who am I going to talk to? Like this road is so daunting just to get this idea made that I just end up shelving so many things that I felt, wow, this could really help humanity. And at the end of the day, where I was like, man, I really don't know where to start to get this to humanity. So it's like, bloop, and I just shelve it, and I don't journal or anything. I just write like narrative text to my sister, like in book form. She's like, why are you writing me all this? And I was like, this is like my form of journal. I'm telling you what's going on in my life, and this is my journaling. And I'm like telling you if anything happens to me, hopefully just someone reads my notebooks. Like just that's all that's important. Just someone gets my notebooks, because maybe they'll have a better time getting the information out.
Really random. I have about 50 things. No, dude, that might be the greatest stream of consciousness that's ever happened on this podcast, by the way. So that's going to have to be cut in an entirely separate thing on YouTube.
I'm so
right
sorry.
there. No, dude, this is why I wanted you on. Oliver Anthony, the guy who's exploded lately with his political.
Yeah.
So I listened to the Joe Rogan podcast with him.
Mm-hmm.
With him or not with him, it was very fascinating.
Oh, of course.
Because
really, how can you truly be with or against somebody as a totality, as a whole, right? There's just so many facets to people and variables going on. Like anyway, sorry, go on.
No, yeah, exactly. And he's just, because some want to make it all political, but he honestly just got on there. The guy didn't ask for like fame or anything. He literally talks about mental health for a lot of it and how he was in a really dark place and he just made what he wanted to make. These songs, he made it on his Android phone and literally just uploaded it to YouTube. Wow. And he said the reason why he did it was because if something were to happen to him, when he said that, it made me think of that. Yeah. At least it's out there.
It's out there.
Maybe someone will get, but then it exploded into like but it's
that's
like
amazing.
It's interesting, like to hear like how simple it can be. We overthink so much of the process.
I agree with you, and at the same time, it depends solely on that individual, right? Like, what is, because go on with your thought, because but I want to touch base on that.
Yeah, I know, and the point, and I'm actually circling back to when you said something on our phone conversation we had setting this up. You're like, we think we're living a way that we think we have to. It's like, there's different ways to live this thing.
Oh, without a doubt.
And that's, I've been thinking about that ever since you said that, because it's like, this is like people say, well, this is how it's done, and this is what's best.
Yeah.
And I go back to that book, Sapiens, man, because when I read it, it's such a great book, and I really felt it did not feel good after reading it, because
how could you?
we haven't changed that much. A lot of the spiritual people say, like,
at the end of the day, we're just people that yell and hit things with rocks and sticks.
Yeah.
Still.
But now we have bombs, and it's the same concept.
It's the same mental concept.
Same exact concept. We're still, and it's almost like, I guess what I'm getting to is like, as you're talking about, is it just our human nature? Are we just like permanently flawed in that sense? Like, whereas I view of like an ancient or an alien civilization came by, or if they were watching us, they'd go, they just don't. Yeah, they just don't. They got potential, but they're missing it. Like, they can't transcend above themselves.
Right.
They're just trapped in this animalistic, ego-driven body and minds.
No, and I think that I don't think that we can have this like designated idea of human nature, right? Because it's just always constantly evolving, right? Like I've heard, these different ways of like putting things into analogy over my lifetime that have always stuck with me. And I've heard, a very simple one saying, that dinosaurs were the test of strength and humans are the test of thought. And what I think is, what about humankind? Oh man, there's a big scope of a thought. This is a
edit marker right here, because this is going to be a clip.
This is so okay. So with even going back to Runner, this idea of like hate isn't something that you're born with. There might be like exceptions with like broken genomes and things like that create psychotic traits or whatever, that is a reality, sure. But I think as a humankind, we have a constantly evolving relationship with our surrounding, right? And it's like we never, oh man. And again, this kind of, I was thinking about this on the ride over here, that the more that you ever learn, the more that you know absolutely nothing, that, and I'm trying to get away from saying that in this cliche way, and more so a way that's like, when you like want to learn and you dedicate yourself to learning things, and you do what you do, more so is you realize, oh my God, there's so much more. You know what I mean? When you're able to open one door to basically, because this is all math, right? It's all one big equation, right? And it's why it's so kind of unknown, like the whole relative point of us is because there's so many variables to like put into this equation, this big mathematical equation. But with us, we're just this constantly evolving thing, and just kind of like that. I think that is our nature, where it's like, oh, here's this new problem within our environment, and individuals within it. How do we, evolve to adapt to it? Like, we just, adaptation is key, right? It's not like survival of the fittest. It's like those who adapt. And I mean, that would make you the fittest in that sense. So with humans, I think we go through these periods of man, I'm just saying so much about like essentially just trying again to say it's like it's essentially peer pressure. I think because of the level of synapses, the difference of that within humankind, I think that it causes this overall repeating sense of few leading the many, and because of that, it creates a frustration, and then that frustration manifests itself into anger, and then that anger projects itself in a multitude of ways. But I don't want to think that humans have this innate nature to be this way. I think that we are just in this current construct that we agreed to, that this is who humans are, and it's like, because, okay, how can it be, right? We have so many well articulated and elegant examples of humans that are enlightened, or happy, and have made a ton of money, and have been happy the entire time. They don't fall into this like miserable state of like, oh, the money didn't make me happy or whatever. No, we have so many examples of humans in this like elevated state where it's like, why not? Why don't we just try? Why don't we all try that? Let's see what the resources they have. Wouldn't it be awesome? Like, and that's where, like, what we were talking about earlier, and one of the main takeaways that most people do get from the book Sapiens is that this is just a construct. There is no way. There's no handbook to human. You're not born and then like this is how it has to happen or you perish. You know what I mean? Like, no. Like, this is, we just kind of have seen how things have kind of evolved, or have been tweaked for certain, and it's not some giant mystery. Like, we can like kind of look at history and how the earth and topography of the earth changed, and the storms that we faced, and all of these things literally made us adapt and become an adequate society after the fact, and then prepare for new ones with the destruction of these other ones. And it's, we literally just watch us problem solve, and we have all these various animals and insects and living organisms on this planet that we just copy, to survive, like, oh, this is what they're doing. So humans have this beautiful mindset of being able to do these things. But I think that we're just, right now caught in the inferiority complex, where we just, I mean, society's kind of been advancing with this mindset, of that there's something beyond us, and that makes us very, very manipulative, malleable to be manipulated. So like, then going back to the nature of humans, it's even like that's all like reaction. It's causality, right? Like these like, even with, okay, we talk about a Space Odyssey 2001, right? With the beginning,
phenomenal movie,
one of the best,
yeah,
and philosophically speaking, one of the best,
one of the best.
And we start with the monkeys. They essentially, we just watch them advance by hitting something and breaking something with a stick and being like, oh, this is tools, or a weapon. But it's not more so. It was not more so the weapon. It was more so the tool, right? It wasn't this idea of, oh, I can hurt. It was, oh, I can utilize an object for my benefit. It was more so a tool, right? So like the jump to like us being super violent is, again, like just a streamline off of our feel of our need to, like, eat animals, and we hunt them, and then I assume somehow that became like a violent trait that over time has been manipulated within humankind. And and I think that has to do with like our all of our things that we ingest and the pollutants in our environment. We're always just going to be a product of our environments, a product of Earth. And we don't really cohabitate well with it, so that gives credence to a lot of like the ideas of maybe we're not organically from here, like
Dude, you took the words out of my mouth. I actually have been having that thought, like, are we just an experiment? Like, you've seen the movie Prometheus, right?
Man, I've been writing one film for 17 years about
I think is it the trilogy?
Yeah.
Oh, dude.
So yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about it. And man,
do you think we're an experiment? Do you think we were placed here by another civilization, or I mean, whatever you want to call it?
I do think
higher power.
I don't think it's as simple as that. It's why I've been kind of writing this film for so long. Without kind of giving too much away, of the kind of the idea of the film. But I do think that we are a kind of an organic and non-organic species of Earth. Just to say, I think that there is a overlap, and I feel like there is another. I feel like, put it this way, I feel like there's another entity involved, whether it be an alien entity, a human entity from a various dimension, which we were talking about earlier, a time slip, a dimension slip, a parallel, universe type thing. Any of those things, I focus on one specific idea within those, for my film. But I do think that there is it's like a start over, there was definitely else somebody involved, or there was already a well advanced society, and then there was us. The dark age, plumbing into the dark ages is, in my opinion, we just lost the sense of magnetics and mathematics, and we plummeted into the dark ages. And I think that the technology we lost that plummeted us in the dark ages, and I think that the understanding of how to be harmonious with magnets is such a fundamentally needed thing on this planet. And I think that so much of what we have what was built before these megalithic structures and these ancient civilizations, I think they did with a very sound understanding of magnetics and mathematics to a degree that I think was somehow lost within the strides of the development of Christianity and pushing, religious doctrines and such. I mean, I think that these efforts kind of culminated into like a despair of humankind, that we kind of slowly pulled ourselves out of. But yeah, I mean that's kind of after the fact of like the building of these structures and these great civilizations, like the Sumerians and the Aztecs and the Incans and the Egyptians. I do think that there was some kind of other society, or group of individuals that were a key piece of that. To me, it's written like at some point, why not just take what's written in stone as written in stone, when so much of the world believes in made up, doctrines of the same story that's told over and over in different ways without any kind of like strong, physical evidence, when we have, things written on on caves and on various temples and
You're referring to more to religious doctrines?
Yeah, it's strange that we prefer to believe instead of take what's written a lot of times as their history. We've turned it into a parable of some sorts, because we don't have those things in our time. So it's like, oh, it must not have been in that, must not have been the case. And no, they weren't working there, because I mean, every great civilization, every single one, including the Christians, all claim that they came from a star, a greater being, beyond us. And we have various societies, ancient societies, that are like, yeah, we were the star people were like helping us do this, and here's the drawing of like Wednesday when they like helped us build the building over there on the northeast corner, it looks like this, and it's that one right there, and they're like pointing over to it, and then this dude right here that doesn't look like us, he helped us, and they're really big, or whatever. And it's like, why strain to find some parable when it's like, no, it all makes sense. It's like Monday through Friday. Like, here, this is what they did, And
I've never heard anyone break it down like that.
So to me, it's just strange because of, the overall like growth of religion, because religion was always going to be the strong move because of, the inferiority complex, us always thinking that there's something beyond us.
Well, it's easy to control when people can't see it, right?
Right. I mean, because you can, you create a line of ascension, right? Like that's literally how power into society was created, right? I mean, the great study of like Socrates or Plato. I think one of them, either maybe one of them, and possibly neither of them, but an ancient philosopher, I guess, had this study where they put a child in a closed off gray room-esque thing, in some kind of society, a Greek or Roman. I'm not exactly sure the actual historical facts of the individuals, but I just know that the study itself, that they put this child at a very young age for multiple years, I guess, in this gray room, and it didn't have any human interaction. And all that was in the room was like a woven figure, like a doll.
Mm-hmm.
And they would just slide food in and out, through a little crack, so it didn't have any human interaction. It just got food. And over time, this child began to think that doll was the reason it was in the room, and also the way to get out of the room. So that's when we learned, as a study, a philosophical study, through one of these great, dirtbags philosophers, is that we idolize. That's when we learn this great, basically society molding concept that we idolize. We think that there's something beyond us, like it's that thing is the overall presence. We innately think there's something beyond us. And that, again, to me, gives credence that there is, there is some other like society that maybe created us as an experiment, or birthed us, or cultivated us, or whatever, or showed us how to live. So that study then kind of birthed the way, and my understanding of is how I guess Alexander the Great really kind of proceeded in how he conquered lands, and in a style of Genghis Khan, like instead of just like wiping out all of their people, would give them the option, to, you can live under, you guys can do whatever you want, do your shit, but at the end of the day, if like we go to war, you're on my team and you fight for me. And, like I come rolling through, you're on my side, and then that idea just grew and grew and grew, that, okay, there's always going to be like a greater overall concept. And then we're kind of going around again, the bush, to get to this idea of ascension. So when you take away, like back in the day, like long, back in great early historical text, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of prejudice towards humankind, from humankind, not a lot of racism or prejudice. You wouldn't find, there was tribalism within land and things like that, but they weren't because of like, oh, the color of their skin, or because they looked different. This idea was really not very prominent within what we can tell historical texts and references and stuff. Because at the end of the day, they all, like we talked about, or like I talked about a minute ago, they all kind of had this agreement. Like, we're all just people that came here from the stars, and that was like civilizations that had no form of communication, across vast oceans, that Sumerians and the Aztecs, like the Egyptians and the Mongols, like just at different times, people all felt that they were from the star. So they were all just people, there was no like difference within people. But that makes this, hard to have any kind of control when you all kind of agree you're all on this kind of the same level, right? So if you take away what's known and you put a question mark with this idea of idolization, right? It's like, oh, well, we're not all, we're all just people, but there is, this thing above us, right? Now, if you put something above those people, and I hope, are you following me with that?
I'm
like, if you put an idea above all those people, then you have a direct line of ascension. So then what people can do, intelligent people, the people with a little bit more synapses, they can see that and go, oh shit, I can act like I have a direct line to that great thing. So they plug themselves in above people saying that they are, or ordained, or, basically a direct line of ascension from that great thing. So that creates power for themselves. They now have power through a fake belief, an ideology. They're basically saying, oh, it's like a priest.
prophet,
it's like a prophet,
example.
or a priest, or,
right.
it's how king bloodlines started, is if you were blessed, at a certain time through a certain divinity, that is correlated to a certain religious person. And that literally created this sense of power. And that literally harkens back to the true essence of human beings, is that intelligence is really basically truly recorded at its highest level by those who convince people they're intelligent. Manipulation is the highest form of intelligence. You don't have to be truly smart if you can just convince people that you are without doing the work. So that's how you create power. If you just have a direct line to that almighty divine, it's divinity, I'm divine, I'm better than you. And that's literally just someone using more synapses than the common person going, I think I should be a little bit better than them. Oh, that great thing? I'm blessed. I'm divine by that great thing, whether it be a religious thing or an overall leader at the time. Like, oh, that leader is my homie. He told me I'm his buddy. Like, so I'm better than all of you. And it just creates power. And through that idea of the few leading the many, that's how we proceeded into the society that we are today. And that society is fine when you're using like trade and land utilization for capitalistic ideologies, but that's all changed. But we haven't changed our mental construct of how we agree to perpetuate through it. And that's where we're kind of getting to now. It's like it's gonna eventually change on like it. Inevitably things are gonna happen. I don't think there'll be some great revolution or fallout. I think just things will slowly start to evolve, because that's the idea, right? That's the great idea. It's like it's just to take these great powers, greater minds and powers, the few leading the many. The idea of how to do that is utilize that many and use their time, use them as a resource, like we're just a resource to a greater idea, which is called society. And that idea is just an agreed upon construct where everyone just be like, oh, wait a second, this is what are we doing here? Like, it's all shitty. Like, it's
quit questioning and clock in.
Yeah, it's like, and that's really the true reality of it, because at the end of the day, man, like, it's mind-boggling that we're still doing all this, right? Like, with so many homeless and so many like mothers and fathers like working 4 jobs to like get by,
just to get by.
I would call myself somewhat successful, and I'm literally like, I think about fucking suicide more than I think about anything. That's the harsh reality, because it's just like, man, I don't see, as good as I could do anything, I don't see a financial way out of it. Any of it, you know what I mean? It's like, because I face a very unique situation with my father and trying to like live in this state and do the things that I do, and then also take care of my father full time, and that shouldn't be the case, man. And man, in my world of frustration is like, why can't I just like create and think like, like why do I have to lose all my time fighting to get my time to think,
Yeah.
where it's such a valuable thing for us. It's literally the only thing that's relative is our time. Money is literally just something to buy. It's a tool to buy your time back. It's literally it. And it's a truly unneeded thing. Like, money is such, and I think that's probably the thing that you
I think you're getting to that. I think what you
Instagram
just said
thing was
yes.
about the fact that we don't need money. I mean, I literally I can give you a sound debate for as long as anybody wants about the non-need for an actual currency. Like, not even a trade and barter situation is needed, because we will advance. Like, we're literally, if you like, that's how we developed in the first place. It's how these professions and these careers and these skill sets developed, because someone just wanted to do those things. And they're like, well, do you know how to do that? Go do it. And then more people wanted to do it. And then it just developed into a skill set or a profession or an ideology of people, So it's like like that's what would occur. That would still occur. Everybody would just be doing and I'm glad we kind of got into this topic because it is kind of a novel concept, but because I didn't really dive into the depths of it, but just kind of blatantly thinking about it, it's like they would just like, for instance, an airline, right? Someone would be like, "Ah, man, I want to, fly an airplane," right? Well, then if there was an airline didn't exist yet or whatever. So essentially someone would be like, "Oh, look at flight. That would be super cool. I'd want to do that." So then they would try to go through the formalities of building an actual flying object like Da Vinci or then into the Wright brothers and stuff. And they weren't doing that as a business model to put a bunch of fucking people on it to take them from, one side of the country to the other. They were doing it because they wanted to do it, right? And because no one was paying them, that didn't develop out of a mass audience waiting for them to develop flights so they could pay for a bunch of tickets. That's not where that concept sparked from.
It was pure.
It was like just someone wanting to do it, right? And then the things unfolded around it that became the sense of owning amount of those planes, right? And then basically leasing them out to people. And then it was like, oh, I can put people in them and fly them around. That would still occur. All that would still occur without the needs of anybody paying for anything at all. And for like to kind of explain in greater detail, it's like, okay, so now that you have these planes built and a person has a plane, you then have to like learn how to fly that plane. It's like, oh, you want to fly that? You want to take this plane? You want to fly too? Well, you're going to learn how to use the mechanical structure of this plane. Or then people will learn how to use the mechanical structure of the plane. So, and while those people are doing that, other people are learning other things that interest them, probably out of need. A lot of times it's out of necessity. Someone breaks their leg, and it's just inquisitive. The inquisitive nature of humankind. Like that's why we're the, like what's like why we tout Da Vinci so much, because of just the inquisitive mind of like, oh, dude broke his arm, can't use it. Why? Like what's not working in there to not allow that finger to move, like just literally the asking of why. And so someone's like, oh, I'm going to figure it out. Like, oh, well, okay. Just, what, if you break that there, but you can put it back together and then it'll work. Okay, dope. Again, that wasn't for some capitalistic mindset of like, I'm going to figure out how to fucking fix arms and then people are going to pay me to do it. Like
I'm going to charge insurance. Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
That's an unnecessary byproduct of like human manipulation, right? And really that kind of derived from agriculture, owning land and being like, ooh, I got all this food and people want it because they're not good at growing it. Instead of teaching them how to, do it efficiently on their own, I'll just do it for them and they'll just pay me, in a portion of what they have. And then that became wealth, and then wealth became capitalism and yada, yada, yada. But it's unnecessary, right? There's no need for a middleman. There's no other living organism on the face of this earth that literally works to live, right? It's just pointless. They just do everything they need to do to enjoy their basically existence and time that they have on this planet to experience it, and more you experience, the more wisdom that you gain and you progress. Like we're all about like staying in one spot and basically cultivating community there and staying there and then working for the ones that do travel around and learn and import and export, at this point. But it's all literally just pointless. But it's such a vast step from where we are. It's hard to basically fix a wheel while it's moving, so no one really wants to attempt, so we just nitpick and argue about.
That's a good analogy. It's hard to fix the wheel while it's moving.
Yeah, and
and there's too many people that benefit from that wheel moving. Although a lot of people aren't,
it's moving so fast because it's a well refined system machine. So and at this point, it literally has to just stop.
I'm not gonna lie, man. My mind's pretty blown right now. Like you got me. Like this is like one of the. It's just interesting. That's why I love talking to you, man. Because it's like no one stops to talk about this. Everyone's on autopilot. And what you said about you're working to buy your time, That, you know how crazy that sounds and
absolutely
is?
insane.
It's crazy.
Think about this saying, you have to, earn a living. That implies that it's a right to live as long as you're making a earning to do so. It's just like, it's such a mind fuck that we've like, oh yeah, that's right. It's like, no, you're all it's people, man. It's people. It's like, we're so afraid of pain because we are smart, right? It's our brain that makes us think these feelings and emotions, right? It's like our brain is the one understanding, going, oh, that's not cool to me. Oh, that sucks, and it makes me not feel good, right? It's our brain being able to rationalize why that's not cool to us, right? So overall, we're kind of at that point to where everybody's time is just so kind of consumed or taken by their living, their jobs, trying to make finances or ends meet, that all they can really think of is like, oh, this is all happening, like everybody's smart enough to know it's all happening, and they just they don't have enough time to do anything, about it, or they don't have the adequate, mental capacity to be in a position to do so, because it's harder and harder to find those positions. And at the end of the day, everybody just has to, literally just stop. And I think that'll be kind of the great denominator of the internet. People would just be like, you see this meme? They said we can just stop doing this shit. And people be like, yeah, I saw that meme. You want to just stop? And people be like, yeah, I think I'm gonna stop. I think I'm gonna step back from this like republic. Like, how crazy it is that you're born onto a piece of land in a world, and you have to be that thing. Like, bro, what in the world? Like, nationality, like nationalism, like you either you're lucky enough to be born in one country, like, and it's all cool. And if you're not lucky enough to be born in that country, and you're born in like, war-torn fucking place in Africa, your life might suck. You might not even get a, piece of food until your like third birthday. Mm. It's just, I mean, dude, it's so strange. Like, being closed off. Like, that's why, like, these ideas of like being closed off from each other and looking at each other from any different than just people, experiencing the world, like, it's gonna cause problems, in my opinion. Like, nationalism and traditional culture and all that stuff is to me retarded. I'm sorry to all you guys that love your like cultures and religions and nationalities. I think they're all stupid. I think it just creates a great divide amongst individuals when it's like, man, we should just be all. I mean, and I guess that's a little too poignant of a comment, but not that I don't find the beauty in the cultures and stuff, but being that it's like they're so exclusive to the people and of the regions and things of that nature. I don't like borders and the idea of nationalism. I think the Olympics are dumb. I think I just like. At this point, like,
we're all human beings.
Man, if I can fly to China in like 17 hours, it's like, and we still are like on the fence about like, they're a country, we might go to war with them. Like, what? What? Like, over dollars? You can murder a bunch of people over dollars? Like that, like, we could like, and that's, there's no elegant, like, sophisticated, philosophical means of putting it any other way. You know what I mean? You're not going to bullshit anybody to the point of like, oh no, it's for like, it's because they're trying to, hoard a bunch of goods and that would be a detriment to our society because then they wouldn't be, able to eat or have this gasoline or, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it's like, no, what? All that stuff's still there. You know what I mean? It's just people acting a fool over money.
And the thing is, it's not the people and the citizens of these countries that hate each other.
No, exactly.
It's the governments that are doing it, and we all get roped into it.
We're literally the ones literally the workhorse of that anger the tool of that anger, and then the basically byproduct of whatever consequences those actions have. Man, like if anything, I hope the internet is that great common denominator where people can quickly discuss and say, we anybody done with this? You know what I mean? Like,
you said something on the last podcast, something along the lines of, I'll just use this for example, two ends of this political spectrum. You're like, I bet you guys both like the same TV shows.
Yeah.
I bet you both like, that's the thing. Like, if we were to sit here from people from other countries, it would be beautiful. It's probably like,
it's wild to argue, like to split things into two, like, and that was part of my Instagram post of that same one that you're talking about. The fact that we're able to take so many things that humans are able to do to create progress, issues, advancements. We're going to take all of that and separate them into two categories. Two different. You're either on this side, simple, right? Or it's on this side. All this human
pick
shit.
One.
Yeah, you're either Republican. That's either a Republican thing.
If you don't pick one, you're against us all.
It's like, bro, what are you talking about? Like, I can't be. You know what? I like that one, but that's over there, and I like a bunch over here, but I can't put that one over here. Like, no, I gotta be all this shit over here or all this shit over here, and that's America. You're either all your problems that you're facing that you talk to your therapist about, and your therapist goes, that's real unique. Not a lot of human beings are even dealing with something like that. But I got to go back outside of that office and say, I have never even heard of a human being dealing with the unique life that I'm dealing with in the way that I'm dealing with it. But I got to take all my difficulties. I also got to take all my education, all my understanding of humankind from traveling around and meeting vast amounts of people on all sides of every ideology that we know. And I have to take all of that and those love for those people that are Southern, or those love for those people that are West Coast or Northern poor or Northern elite or Southern poor. And I got to take all of that and my problems in my life and how as an artist, it's so incredibly difficult for me to advance as an intellectual creative. It's like, okay, so all of this and my frustrations, no, you got to fucking separate that shit into, left or right. And I'm like, no, well, how is that? How is that even a thing? And that still perpetuates to this day, and people are literally on, killing people over it, and just so angry about these things that are so surface, right? But at the same time, they can step back and watch like a cartoon like Family Guy or The Simpsons, make fun of them and laugh at it because they go, oh, look at that fucking idiot, that they're making fun of. Ha ha ha, I get it. But then they're that person, but they don't get it. Because this is the age of cognitive dissonance, right? It's like, if anything, this is that. This is where we're at in our world, is that we have so many people that are so afraid. And that's why religion is such a strong thing, because it gives you an immediate thing to grasp onto, to feel like you have purpose, that you're a part of something, and then you'll be accepted by most of them no matter what. And you're just like, oh, well, this is, I don't know anything else going on, but I got this, and it's just, that's their main, like, oh, I gotta live and believe in this, and I'm on this side. And it's just like, why? Like, when, and that goes back to like, when people are like, oh man, like the staunch right-wing guys that are so sound in tradition, and guys and women that are like, nah, man, fuck, like food stamps, like, people just getting handouts, and you should be working till your fucking hands bleed, and you go home and you're so exhausted that you have to drink to delude the pain, and then you fucking are angry and you don't fuck your spouse, and you just are mad. That's life, like that's the American way. And then at the end of that struggle, when you're like fucking 60, you got a nice fucking nest that you'll build a house and then fucking live in it until you die and don't experience anything, and get mad at people that move around the world because they should be fucking staying in one place, and raising a family. And it's like being fucking redundant and ignorant. It's like, why? Why do you want to do that? Why is that a problem? Why wouldn't you want to hand out? Like you're the same motherfucker that I see at 7-Eleven getting a scratch off. Like you're gonna win that scratch off and you'll be like, yeah, someone that I don't fucking know that's gonna give me a fucking $50,000. Fuck yeah. And then get on fucking Facebook and be like, God damn, assholes need to go to work and stop asking for handouts. And it's like, oh my God, dude, what is happening here? And you know, and then you want to immediately get mad at these people because you think that they've done exactly what we're talking about. You think that they've cognitively picked a side. And they haven't, man. They've been literally forced into fucking environments that they're too dumb to be able to basically see everything for what it is because they fucking, you know, parents got sick, died of cancer when they were 16 and dad was an abusive alcoholic, or so they got to go to work at 16, you know, and then try to go to high school too. And then their high school has, you know, teachers that are tenure and fucking gave up on caring about kids at, you know, their 7th year. And so they don't get the proper education and they come out of it fucking frustrated and mad because no one taught them how to do taxes or fucking, you know, and they live in an area where there's now they don't have any means to move forward other than sports. So they're not that great at sports. So then they fucking get somebody knocked up and then they have a kid early on. And now they're just like, you know, and now everything from there on is just projection, right? It's like my anger I'm projecting at the rest of the world. It's like, no, y'all should be fucking sad too. And sad and angry because I'm fucking sad and angry, you know? And it's like, man, you're just, it's like, so now we have these two very, very diverse or defined sides with these candidates that represent them to the upper echelon of their ideology. And it's just like, wow, man, it's just like, well, you want one guy that represents this poor concept. You want this other guy that represents this other poor concept. And it's like, that's all we got. So why don't we just argue about it instead of going like, why don't we argue them being like, this is not good. Like, no, where's like our professors? Like like, what's your IQ? Like, where's your master's degree from? You know, and you're our president. What? Like, is it ever more been a figurehead? And this is what we're arguing about. Like, and then you could go and have a conversation with, you know, any of these individuals on the left or the right privately at a bar without knowing their political, you know, recognition or political affiliation. And everybody be like, yeah, man, they're all crooked, you know, like, you know, fuck the government and it's all bullshit, you know, we're all broke and blah, blah, blah. And again, like I said, it's like, I like that TV show, you know, like, yeah. And it's like, so where did we get off track here, you know? And just from various environments and you know, traditions. I mean, look, man, I just saw something that I thought was so incredible, and I couldn't believe it was the first time I saw it. It was Frank Zappa sitting with like a few economists or somebody, maybe I think they're professors or economists or whatever. And he basically said that this is, you know, the capitalistic mindset that gives credence to a religious, basically made up doctrine and benefits for those that made it up. When it starts to bleed into progressive politics and it's voted upon and put into legislation, that changes the whole game. You know what I mean? That removes any kind of fair concept of a democracy. You know, it's a theocracy at that point, right? You're literally putting in religious, basically agreed upon, made up ideologies into literal, you know, policy of a government. That's and he was like, that's going to happen more and more, you know, and we now see it so much as like the right side is just such a Christian adopted thing. We've literally pressed, I mean, we have a whole subtext out of the Constitution, a whole separate article about keeping religion out of politics, because it's that important. Because once you start taking something that is a belief, a thing that is manipulable to the sense of, you know, it's a story, you know, like then if you put that into politics, that removes the mathematical essence of the politics. You know, politics is just math, you know, or finances. It's literally like how we proceed with the money that this capitalistic structure makes, like that everybody in position is literally just a part of the financial structure. That's all the government really is like what we do with the money, then how that, like, okay, we created a police force, and that police force would get this much funding, and they have this much ability with that funding for these laws, so it's all just financial. So once you start putting like various, constructs into it, then you can start, saying, oh, well, we're going to do it this way because that's, what we believe in, and not everybody believes. That's not fair, because then you're forcing people to believe in something that's not evidentially sound, so that's, I mean, it's religion, man. I don't like people's religion. I don't like religion.
Well, before
and what that all ties to, and something that I was talking, that just like I wanted to kind of say and to tie that all up, and how absurd it is sometimes when I'm trying to, like, because I teach like advanced youth, and I try to express to them the need to kind of like fight this idea of when you're stopping and thinking that it's lazy. Because I'll be like, look, you see this microphone, or the idea of being able to capture, record sound. How do you think this happened? By someone sitting there and just thinking, and then enacting in that thought. Like, it's such a precious thing where it shows the true relative nature of your time, and that it's all of it, everything that we know, every great thing that we've ever used, every great business, every great invention was someone that just sat and thought, and it wasn't, they weren't out doing something and then that thought, occurred. No, it's a literal, like, at this time I'm thinking about this problem. Or, wow, you hear how I can hear my voice? Wouldn't that be cool if I could record it, capture it somehow, like just doing nothing, owning that time, and thinking, like sitting still and thinking is such a novel thing in our world now. You literally are called lazy. You should have your ideas, and that's why we see such a lack of creativity, or a diverse creativity. Like we see creativity on the same thing,
just
like,
repurposed,
just
over
repurposed,
and over.
yeah. And true creativity is like, you have to really kind of like think, and I feel that it's so strange that that's become such a bastardized thing to stop and think. Because if you start to scale that, that's why we're kind of stuck in this kind of, motion, this wheel, because even our greatest minds don't have time to like stop and think. They're, doing everything that they think they should be doing, and getting their masters, and then going into like, a specific field, and getting those accolades, and advancing progressively in that area. But it's wild, man. It's wild. And I think that's like why we don't see the allure of art like we used to, like it's all just kind of regurgitated, repurposed ideas. Like, we're not really seeing this, like, oh my God, like this is some serious, really thought-provoking, time-taking, mastered type, art. And art's not really relative to the sense that it was before, even in back to the 70s and 60s. It started to kind of really die out as a mainstream like culture, in my opinion. It's just because everything's just, I mean, dude, we go through trends like in 4 or 5 months, like it's TikTok is just like, oh, this is the new cool thing. Oh, this is the new cool thing. Oh, this is the new cool thing. Like our clothes, our styles, our trends, like we're rapidly like growing into like, oh, we've run out of like, it's 2023 and we just kind of redid 2000. You know what I mean? So like, where are we at now? Like now we're going to go to like, monochromatic, all one color. Like who knows where we're going? I mean, clothes are crazy anyways, man. It's such a weird thing that we do. wear clothes.
I like how all that led to that statement.
Oh man.
Well, one
so
thing,
sorry. It
no,
is weird
dude,
though, right? Like we
this
wear
is-
clothes. We don't get anything out of them. They're like we're the most efficient creatures in the fucking face of the earth, and we literally just throw on garments every day that does nothing for us. Like we don't pick up a thing unless it has like various nutrients or vitamins or whatever, or like where some like everything we do has like some benefit to us, except for like clothes. Isn't that weird? Like clothes should be doing something for us all the time. Like, I don't know. It's humans.
What about like keeping us warm or
No, I
things
mean,
like
but
that?
that's why you have hair,
Mm.
and I just and it's that's the elementary like that's where we get like the sense of a garment, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna like protect myself from the elements, but like it's just 2023, you know what I mean? Like we're just getting to the point where we're weaving copper into clothes, like because it promotes like blood flow. It's like okay. Why don't we have like clothes like there should be like nanotechnology like should be
Right.
like giving me vitamins
Yeah,
or
monitoring my vitals and
something, man. You know what I mean? Like they're just now in the military putting tourniquets into the clothes instead of like carrying one around with you, where you like just pull a cord and it's in your clothes. Like,
oh, that's genius.
well, like, yeah, but of course it's like it's weird how we advance with these like ideas where it's like, how did we not?
Kind of like back to the helicopter and the drone thing.
Too, like anything like I work on, because I create different, functional tech and stuff, and the things that I develop, it's like when I get to the idea and I start to develop it, it's like how like I have to truly research it because it's like kind of perplexing that has yet to be introduced as an idea. It's like how does it not like where did and everything's like that. It's like simple things. The most simple things are always
And this leads me to a question, and I know I talked about this on the last podcast, but I have to again. I'm big on giving roses where roses are due. Like while we're
I'm
sitting
just
here
an artist
talking,
and a filmmaker, and I'm talking about.
but you're an inventor, you're a create. Like you are arguably one of, if not the best executor I know.
Thanks.
That talks about an idea.
Mm-hmm.
And then like you go do it. Like I've
no
seen
choice.
you do it so many times. Even like when you do like the 48-hour film festival stuff, you hop on your Instagram, guys, I need this, and this.
Yeah.
And I'm like, it's fun to watch. I'm like, I wonder if he's gonna get it. Like, I wonder if he's gonna. And then next thing you know, you guys are shooting behind the scenes. Next thing you know, you got a movie poster.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, you're going to a premiere. It's just like, Joel gets shit done. Like that's one thing I can truly say about you, man. Is you do it very well.
Thank you.
Like, so my question, I guess, to you, has that always been in you, or another part to that? Do you even know what makes you tick that way, and what makes you be able? Because we live in a world where people like to talk a lot, and they get very little done. Whereas, like with you, like it's been fascinating to watch you since I've known you, man. You're just mind. I just feel like your mind is going at all times.
Yeah,
you're like Leonardo da Vinci in a way. Dude, you're just making shit, and it's awesome.
It's out of I guess a sense of necessity to. I mean, and really, man, it's a hard way to like not. A hard way to say it without sounding a way I don't want to sound. If you felt that you could affect things on a greater scale or had an ability, okay. So okay. When I was young, I had and I still do. I have such an athletic ability.
Mm-hmm.
And I, was not needing bow leg as a kid. It's like kind of like a Forrest Gump situation where like the doctor was like, you could put braces on your kid's legs, or he could grow up and his legs could work out really well, and create a situation where he's really fast. And it turned out to where, I did have to have braces at some point early on, and then I became extremely fast. That was my, game in sports was my speed. Saying all that to say this is that if I saw someone then unable to do those things, right? Like someone in a wheelchair, like a kid in a wheelchair. I would think about that kid seeing me like run, you know. If I was a kid in a wheelchair and I saw me run across the field, you know, racing kids, you know, and I blow these kids out of the water or whatever, I would have to think that kid's like, man, if I could do that, I would so fucking do that. You know what I mean? I would do it to the best of my ability to, you know what I mean? Like I wouldn't waste that ability. You know what I mean? It's like you have the ability to do all of these things. Like it's again, like there's no like no one's smarter truly than anyone. It's like who spends more time on one particular thing, you know, or who's vastly inquisitive about that thing. You know, like even Einstein's like, you know, I'm not smarter than anybody. I just will spend much more time on a certain particular thought. You know, I'm vastly inquisitive. And you know, and again, that's taking into considerations, you know, development issues with the brain and stuff. But so this is a really touchy thing for me to try to like talk about. Almost like brings me to tears because I don't really know how to put it other than in some sense of an arrogance that it's like I want to prove that I can, and that all these other things that I'm doing are all these like necessities to get to this like point of recognition, you know, like where I am recognized in the same, you know, sense of Da Vinci or Tesla, like because they did so much, and it's like we got drawn into this like sense of having a dream and being so linear focused on like doing this one thing and not experiencing it all. It's like you know, like in that doing these things are so hard where it's like there's a path to everything that's ever been done. Someone has done everything that's ever been done, so there's literally a path to all of it. And it's like whatever, it's you just go and do it. If you want to do anything, you literally there's a very defined way to do it all.
A blueprint
to all of it. And it's all possible. It's all very possible to experience. And being, you know, good at anything as a youngster, like in the South or whatever, you were just like conceited or arrogant, you know? And I hated that. Like I was a, you know, well put together, you know, handsome kid that was really good at sports. And because of that, I was conceited and arrogant, you know, and I hated that. So then I developed like a huge like complex. So, you know, self-confidence complex. And it's like, am I just an egomaniac? But it's like, but I can do all these things. Like, why do I have to apologize for being able to do all these things? And why do I have to not want to do all these things? And why can't I just do all these things? Like, why do I have to make all this money and do all this stupid shit? Like, you know, like, why can't I just like why I just can't make things? Why can't I just make things, you know, so other people can have all the money, you know, like, just let me make things. Like, why do we tout all these people when they're dead? Like, why do we revere, you know, Tesla and Da Vinci after they're gone? You know, like, oh, they were the greatest of us, but all they did was sit there and go mad and think by themselves alone, you know? And that's who I identify with. My life has been forfeit to just humans, you know, like I'm not going to have relationships. I'm not probably going to have kids, you know, like and that just breaks me a lot of times because I'm just here to as like a catalyst for us, you know? And it's like why do I have to scream, you know, bloody murder to get a chance to be that, you know? And that's why, you know, like artists and people, like if people want to know why artists are the ones that like rebel, it's because we're the ones that like want to have a voice, and we have to work the hardest to just be heard. And you know, and nowadays you have to like tiptoe through the tulips to you know, to be someone respected enough to be heard. I mean, and that's why I left sports, man. Like everything I'm doing is to just write this trilogy. It's my only little purpose.
Do you feel you're living your purpose?
Oh man.
Because that's another, and I bring that up because actually Christopher Levy, who was on this podcast and who you know,
Oh, I love Christopher Levy.
yeah, he talked about how everyone like I'm paraphrasing all this, but like this concept of happiness. People like find your happiness, like find your purpose, and guess what? When you find your purpose, you're not going to be happy the whole time. In fact, there's going to be times where it's brutally hard.
Yeah, I mean that's the only way you learn, right? So it's like we know that you only learn from failure, so you're supposed to be happy through that whole thing. Like happiness is just a word, man. You know, like so is love. You know, I guess this is where being autistic, I don't feel emotions in the same sense or understand them in the same sense that most people do, where people get so caught up on things that drive them to a certain feeling where I don't really see I don't get it, like love and attachment and all that stuff. It doesn't make logical sense to me to have such a deep attachment in an emotional sense to it all. Like it's wild, honestly. And to me, that harkens back to everything we're talking about. Just like our need to like grab onto something and feel, just to know that we're experiencing something. And that's why they usually fail, because it's not a true thing to like want to experience everything with the same person. It's wild. So like happiness and even purpose, like I don't know, like if you just break it down to the most like bare bones of things, right? Let's look at how we're designed, right? With like our structure of a being. It's seemingly caused to us walking places and meeting people or seeing things, and then hearing and smelling those things, and then getting an understanding of why they've been arranged that way or affect the surroundings or us that way, and then get information, and then walk and maneuver over obstacles and over land terrain to get to other people to then share that information. Like that's to me, that's basically it. You know what I mean? It's the way that we're developed. And the things that we create are how we share that information. That's the in-between, like society. And some ways of sharing that information is elaborate and takes more time, where, some doesn't. So the purpose to me is to obtain as much experience. Like, I mean, your world is only as big as what you experience. You cannot say that that you've existed beyond what you've experienced. Your world's only as big as where you've gone. Like, seeing things in a book are the exact same things if you read the book about Middle Earth and Lord of the Rings. Like, that's just still a figment of your imagination until you experience it, right? So in order to experience it, you have to go to do these things, and you need skill sets to go and do these things, and then those skill sets turn into abilities that then get capitalized into monetary value. So just doing anything, literally, like for yourself, if true purpose is getting to the point to where you're literally experiencing life solely for yourself, not like where it's like you're just in a hobbit away from or in the woods by yourself, but I mean like your choices are yours for their own sake, right? You're not experiencing life because you're walking to a job and you've experienced life within that walk of your job. No, I'm experiencing exactly what I'm experiencing because I choose to do so. Once you get to that point, and unfortunately, that now comes with the freedom through financial gain and accessibility, is that what buys your freedom. So we're all cool with just not having freedom, like born into a republic that you start paying taxes to, and then now you're part of a workforce, and you have to agree upon it all. Like what, man? Like, I think it's just so wild. So, like, I definitely would agree more so with with you're going to put, words on it to find your purpose or to believe you feel a purpose. You know what I mean? Instead of like a happiness can be what really is like happiness, like it's so finite. It could be like a moment. It could be fleeting.
Just dopamine
it's just
rushes.
dopamine in your head, man. It's just a word.
We just live off dopamine,
dude, it's
and
like
these phones have just produced endless dopamine, and you got it.
It's just all experiences, right? Like probably one of the most sound parts of the Matrix, man, that or one of the coolest, impactful parts of the Matrix for me at least is when Neo, I think it's the third one, where Neo's stuck in the train station at the beginning and he can't get out of the train station. And then there's the Indian girl and father and mother. And he's like, how do you have, you're a program, how do you have love for your daughter? And he's like, it's just a word. Love's just a word, man. Just it's the feeling that's, it's the synapses, the program, like it's an understanding of things, an understanding and empathy of things that really drives us. And I think if like, if anybody would take away anything, is like consideration is the highest form of intelligence, because it's what you bode your time to. You have to stop and think about all the possibilities before you make a decision. That's why chess is, regarded as like, the ultimate intellectual game, is because you have to consider so many options before making a move. And that's what life is, right? That's why consideration is the highest form of intelligence, because consideration means you have to take your time to think about every possible scenario before you make a rational or logical reaction. For instance, the person on the street walking down the street screaming and yelling, and gets angry at you. They're not angry at you. There's other things going on in their life, clearly. So it's like, did you just knee-jerk react because someone yelled at you and called you a name and they're mad at them? Or did you take a moment of pause and consider that person might be going through something else? That's a sense of consideration, so being able to consider all possible, variables within an equation before you react is the highest form of intelligence. So in this world, man, we're I think those that can consider all aspects of humankind and then move throughout life accordingly are going to be our most advanced. So that's literally what I'm trying to do. Like, I don't remember who said it, but they said that real wealth is being able to go anywhere and feel comfortable.
Dang, that's
so yeah. I mean, I'm talking your ear off.
No, dude, that's the point of the pot. Well, I could do part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I think you need to be that every 6 months. Come on here.
Well, it's just this time in my life is such a unique time that so many things are weighing so heavily on my mind, about like and I'm in like, essentially like a midlife crisis. I'm going to turn 40 in a couple years, and I'm not at the position I'd like to be at, like in my career, and I'm dealing with so many other things, and I don't know, it's just like everything is, and just the state of our world right now is wild, man. It's wild. Wow. So it's like, everything's, and I just want to, just create and, be a catalyst of hope, and not even to sound so cliche, just a person that affects things on a scale that should be affected, I guess, because this world's not really that big. I mean, if you look at it,
especially now with
the
internet.
Instagram and TikTok and Facebook and social media, it's like, it's like the same 5 famous people, you know what I mean? And there's billions of us, but there's only certain people that really, there's only a certain amount that really, subscribe to this this, reality that we all live within, so it's not really that big. And we see that there's not really that much to our construct of a society, it's a pretty thin veil. and and now the veil's kind of even been pulled off, and the people behind it are still like, well, this is what we're doing, and we're going to do it like this until the wheels fall off. I mean, that's where we're at right now. And I mean, if anybody, for like parents or people that don't understand like the frustration of creatives, and why, I guess maybe to help some people to this two-party situation, like why artists typically tend to be on the left, in a progressive state, and whine a lot, is because these policies that kind of seem insignificant to like an individual are the actual things that are kind of creating obstacles for artists, to take their time back to create their art, instead of like working a typical like job, or falling in with the current, construct the capitalistic mindset. It's tough, so everybody should have empathy for each other, instead of like being like your side stupid as shit. Like, they still live here too. Like, it's America. You're telling me, like, I think it's like maybe Bill Burr. It's like you're telling me that like half the country is not okay with it and the other half is okay with it, and that's just what we're gonna go with. Like, no, you're gonna have half the country mad at the whole time. Like, that's not a win-win. That's literally the epitome of a lose-lose. Like, that's what. So I mean,
And the crazy thing is, if people were to actually sit down and have a conversation with, even with opposing viewpoints, not all the time, but I would argue a good majority, they're going to end up seeing the other oh, okay, I see what you're saying. But said, like you said earlier, oh, this is what my narrative over here told me to think. And, oh, this is what my narrative told me to think. Oh, you bad.
Yep.
You're bad. And they don't even know why they're.
No,
they have no idea.
That's just, again, a product of their environment.
Product of the environment.
Like, let's take, like, man, I'm from Florida. I know some of the most racist, like, backwood redneck people, and they were my friends. You know what I mean? Because they're really nice to me. Like, they were just people. That's how they live. And the reason being that they are that way and stay that way, because they haven't experienced anything else outside of it, and they grew up kind of in a lineage of that idea, right? So because of that, that's how people know them. And that's who they are. And as we know that if people are afraid of anything, it's change. So they just kind of adopt that personality and they become that individual. And because they are that individual to so many people that are comfortable with them, they don't want to go outside of that comfort zone into a new area to be anything other than that comfortability, So we have these people. It's like, oh man, Billy Bob, he's such a badass country boy or whatever, and then Billy Bob's in his town and he's like, yeah, people see me as a badass country boy. So if I were to dare go and travel and not be that badass country boy, I'd be letting down all these people I grew up with, which who gives a fuck? You know what I mean? They're all going to be dead. And then the generation after them is all going to die. And no one's going to fucking care what you cared about, like, at all. It is a fucking miracle of humankind for anybody to be remembered for anything. It's a very small ratio, so again, that harkens back to my overall stupidity of thinking that I would be one of those people. But that's just it, man. So it's like people just get complacent, man. WALL-E's the best thing in the world. Like, that movie's the best thing to show, like, we just want to create a sense of comfortability and complacency. Like, our efficiency is like just to find comfort. And we can take that to an extreme like anything else. And that's kind of what we see, like when we hear people yelling about like gentrification, it's like, what, like you want just people to stay where they're born? Like, no, people are going to be moving around. They're going to go to where industries are, like that's not their fault that some greedy individual is trying to capitalize on it and, raises the rent because people coming from different areas that can afford so are going to pay it. Like, that's not their fault. And of course people should travel around into various communities. Like, what the fuck? It's crazy to think that people should just stay where they are. It's literally a detriment to their own kind or their own being to stay where they are. They need to experience things. And those same people say Billy Bob, that redneck racist motherfucker, his favorite football team's the Bucks, right? You go cross town in Tampa and you find the most hood black dude in the world, and his favorite team's the Bucks. And you take him to a football game and you give him tickets on the 50-yard line right next to each other, watching the Bucks. They're gonna have the greatest fucking time of their life. Neither one of them are gonna pass up it because they know for a fact that racism is a literal concept. It can't hurt you, right? Like it's like, oh, I'm like, of course I can stand next to this black person. His skin's not gonna jump off and fucking create some kind of infection, right? It's just a fucking, oh, I agree with this concept. It's that dumb. So when they get like the opportunity to go sit on the 50-yard line right next to that dude, they're going to completely disregard any kind of sense of racism to experience something that they get that joy out of, that moment of happiness. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's just people agreeing with something and afraid to change because they haven't even had the ability to have that option, right? Because they've never traveled. So to me, again, to answer all of it, it's just people need to go fucking experience things, do a bunch of things, try it all and fail at all of it. Learn to fail at everything so you succeed at something. And and then these ideas of like hate and discrimination towards each other just kind of bleed away, So I mean, find me like a racist like adventurer, and then I would be pretty impressed. Someone that travels around the world and is like experiencing all these things and is racist doesn't make sense, right? It's like, who would that be? So it's just ignorance, man, and they know it, but they're proud of it. That's where we're at the age of cognitive dissonance, where it's just like, I mean, we're just at a time of like tradition versus technology. So, it's like
that might be the title of this episode.
I mean, that's where we're at, man. People that have gotten to a place in a particular way and are proud and comfortable in that place, and then there's a new way of doing it, and that other person hasn't experienced it and thinks it's foolish and dangerous because they know nothing about it, and because a book says otherwise or an idea that existed before technology said otherwise. I mean, and then it's all just misconstrued, and I mean,
wow,
yeah. So I mean, yeah. It's I don't know. It's such a time in the world right now, man. Like at the same time, it's very hard to just exist in it. It is a very interesting time to be alive because there's so much going on. It is a very percolated, world where even the dumbest have a microphone. You know what I mean? It's unfortunately nowadays you don't have to have any kind of respect or recognition to be heard. So, we have a lot of like static coming through the speakers that'll eventually be filtered out. I mean, there's no way with the age of the internet, man, that our world will go anywhere but forward. It's like, how can you have, how can you have so much information so readily available to so many people and feel like we're going to go backwards? Like people that are like, oh, we're doomed or whatever. It's like, bro, what? We're just in a phase, man. We're in a pretty strange, unique phase, of evolution. And it's those that rally against it are making it difficult for that evolution, which kind of always seems to be the case, So, and that's again another reason why I wrote my trilogy or started writing my trilogy. I started to kind of recognize a pattern through like humanity. It's like the same concepts are pounded, and then they just keep evolving into the next same concepts, and it all had to do with like prophecies and trying to stop progression, which in a parable sake or parable sense is there's going to be a next great Messiah that comes and changes what this king does now. So kill the kids. And that was like, you see that through every great society, you know, like stop the prophecy from happening, stop the change from happening. And it always had to do with kill the kids. It's a strange thing that keeps reoccurring through these timelines, even, you know, with, especially with, you know, Jesus being the prophecy. That's why he disappeared at 12 or whatever. He was, you know, supposed to grow up to basically live out this prophecy. So he was sought after, and they were killing boys left and right. So this didn't happen. And then, of course, he came back and fulfilled the prophecy. But you now have the same sense of, you know, for instance, robotics. You know, if a artificial intelligence sentient robot that was built through like DNA, you know, development through gene splicing and DNA, you know, fabrication or whatever. What if that thing got pregnant? You know, and what would it be? A byproduct of a company or a kid? You know, and then essentially it would probably be like, oh no, that's a defunct, you know, piece of property of a machine. You know, get rid of the kids, and then you create a revolution, and it's just an ongoing. There's nothing new under the sun, my man.
Well, we've hit that time. And I know, because if we keep going, we'll be here another.
I know.
We got to save this for well, Joel, I want to say, first and foremost, man, like, thank you for coming on again. Thank you for your openness, your vulnerability. And I'm going to say, man, I don't view of what you have as a mental illness. I view it as you have a very, very special gift. And whether you realize it or not, you are making an impact, a huge impact. I say this with all due respect and won't go into the details, but what you've done for your father, like, is one of the greatest acts of humanity I can imagine a human being doing for someone else. And
Thanks.
I view you're a warrior, you're a survivor. And yeah, this life's really, really, really fucking hard. But whether you realize it or not, man, you don't let it beat you down. You keep going. You keep going. You're relentless, man. And I will forever respect that about you. And
yeah, man, I'm trying. You know, it's all just to make it a little bit better for somebody else, you know, so somebody doesn't have to experience something unnecessary. Like this pain that everybody's feeling, it's all unnecessary, man. So if could make it a little bit easier, you know, and you know, people might watch this and kind of find me to be a kind of a morbid guy that carries myself in a sense of, you know, angst or depression. That's really not the case. It's very much my personal life, and I don't carry that into the world because it is daunting, and I don't want anybody to feel that way. So everything that I do in my outside public persona is to try to, you know, lend a smile. You know, that's so they don't know. Feeling shitty sucks, especially when it's like completely unjust, you know. So if I can just battle that on my own and then set it aside because it's not somebody else's problem, it's, you know, and when I'm out and about, try to, you know, allocate that time for that moment, you know, and then try to make it a better moment for people, you know. That's the idea. If it's not it's like, and with my dad, you know, like my dad's, you know, wasn't always the greatest guy in the world at all, but he's just a human, and you know, he, as bad as he was, he doesn't, you know, or bad as he ever was, my dad was still a good dad, but he definitely had some serious problems as a person with my, you know, overall with my mom and stuff. But he's just, no one deserves, you know, pure unadulterated hell all the time, you know, unless they're some, you know, horrible murderer or something. Like, there's always exceptions, but it's just doing what, you know, feel like you should, you know, like it's just a little bit of empathy, man. If this, you know, if I could kind of reach anybody with a overall idea. It's like, man, just have a little bit more empathy towards people. Just want to like learn a little bit more about people so you can care a little bit more about them, you know, because that goes a real long way. I mean, that's like the fundamentals of like finally talk about something that I do as an actor, you know, like that's my, it's, you just ask why. Just repeatedly ask why, you know, like more layers that you can get to the roots of something, to just the more information you have and you can proceed with it, right? So just and that's being empathetic, you know, like asking why or being inquisitive about everything, like, and you know what, and just kind of rail against shit. You know what I mean? Take risks. If you know, at this point, take some serious risks. Like, if you feel like, you know, you can, like, ah, fuck it, I want to just all of a sudden be, you know, it'd be cool to be an astronaut. Just go do it. Try it. Take one step towards that goal. One single step. Just look at, you know, and that's what, you know, what I do to learn how to do the things that I've done. You know, I've self-taught in everything that I've done, you know, and that's from sports to filmmaking to writing to fighting to anything, you know. Just had a vast interest in it and just took the first step towards it. And then once you're just like, oh, okay, now I'm doing that, you know, like cool. And just try it. And really do it in confidence. Take those strides in confidence. Because if you fail, that's cool. You've learned, okay, that path doesn't work. Like, what is it, Edison? It's like I didn't you know, like figure out how to invent the light bulb. I learned how not to make the light bulb 226 different ways. You know, and then that you fail so many times, you finally succeed. You know, true talent will undoubtedly be found, and he or she who does it most will undoubtedly be found or succeed in whatever they're doing.
I think that right there, that is a great note to end on. If people want to follow you, how do they find you?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram and TikTok, and my website is really simple. It's joel.com. And my Instagram is Joel and then Leoge, my name backwards, 44. So, you know, an anagram or whatever. And is that what an anagram is? And TikTok, I think it's my name. I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'm not super active, which I definitely need to be more active. I dropped the ball with all of that pretty.
To end this, you told me at an acting rehearsal one time, I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
You gave me a Tupac quote. You said that Tupac, and I love Tupac, so it's like,
So I know exactly what quote you're gonna say.
He said, "The things I say or do may not change the world, but the person who is going to change it might get inspiration from what I'm saying." I'm not saying that you're not doing it yourself, but by you having this conversation and you talking about these ideas, because I can't wait to re-listen to this, because, dude, you're talking about concepts I didn't even, when you really stop to think about it, are insane, but like you're giving that thought. And that's what I've always loved and respected about you, is you make people think, and definitely thinking is a theme I'm taking out of this podcast we captured tonight. So thank you for helping us think tonight.
Thanks, man. Thanks. And this is great, dude. It's such an honor to be asked to do something like this. And these things are what keep that drive, you know. It's that little bit of, oh, you know, maybe I am, you know, rippling the water, you know, to where my friends and my peers are noticing, you know. And that's the first step, because that's a real step, you know what I mean? Instead of just jumping into the deep end and kind of splashing around, you know. You know, I'm so proud to have, you know, friends that have recognized some of the things that I'm doing, you know, because that's the point, right? And to be candid and to throw away the like PC cliche of things, like that's the point, like to get some respect for the things that you're doing, you know, and hopefully And I'm so glad you brought up that Tupac comment, because Tupac said it in a manner that he had the ground to stand on when he said it, and the way he said it was very, very clear. In that was, like, I might not change the world, but I damn sure will be a person that, sparks the mind that does. He said it in that regard, like I know what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And that's, I'm getting close to that, I know what I'm doing. It's hard to navigate, but I know what I'm doing. It's just trying to do it and do it correctly, where there's longevity in it. And so, yeah, that's the hope, maybe I make things, I just want to be, I don't know, just want to be remembered for the things I thought. It's as simple as that, man. I'll feel like I've failed if I didn't affect things, because of, that's what I want to do.
Well, Joel, thanks for coming on.
Yeah, you have a lot to.
We got a lot to work with,
a lot
here
to chop up, man. I just went off on some tangents. I don't really, I don't really talk to people very often. Conversations with people come few and far between for me. So sorry if I just kind of.
I'm already thinking about part 3. So until next time, my friend.
Yeah. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you,
Such
Joel.
a pleasure. Oh, dude, and thank you.
Oh, yes. Shout out to Grayson for the ripple effect. He gave me the Rick Rubin book, and now I feel like you, amongst some others, really should have that book. It's again, just sharing the information.
Kind gesture. What a mensch, this guy. I can't wait till this podcast is picked up, man. Because this is you're such an intelligent guy, and I just love the way that you approach the world, man. I love it. That you remind me of a really good friend of mine from back home. He's one of the most intelligent people I know, and he became that way by just asking questions. Because that's the only way you're going to get answers. And he was very deliberate with that. Like, like, I'm going to ask everybody I know what they know all the time. And that created an interest around him. People were like, "Well, what other stuff are you learning?" Because it was his thing. And I just find that to be, it's so cool, man. You're a curator of information. It's awesome. This is like a museum in like real time. I know I romanticize everything, but that's exactly what this is. If people weren't afraid to romanticize things would be so beautiful all the time to everyone, because that's exactly what this is, man. Like this is the real purpose of this. This is the real purpose. Imagine a room of this, just individuals discussing everything, where it's just like, oh, this is why I feel this way. Anybody else feel this way? You know what I mean? Like, I got this issue with these people because of this thing. Is that, what do y'all think? You know what I mean? You're not, it's like, it's so strange, man. It's something I would love to discuss more, but it's like, we gotta be able to compartmentalize pain, like, and what real pain is, and what real, like, fear and danger is, because words and ideas, those aren't the things that hurt us. It's the actions of those ideas. You know what I mean? And when those ideas are convoluted or incorrect or ignorant or undeveloped, that's dangerous, right? So it's all just discussion. That's how we got to everything, man. It's all just an agreed upon discussion. And with more people involved in the discussion, there'd be more understanding of the topics, by more people. So it's these things. I don't really listen to a lot of podcasts. I don't really listen to a lot of anything, but I find them to be like it's like a new form of curating our art. Like, that's the only way that we know what society is through our art. Like, that's how we basically date and document history, is through their art. That's literally it. So this is a new in live time documenting our, like, us and our thoughts, and various people that are, within those genres of thought. It's cool as shit. It's cool as shit. I get overwhelmed by other people's thoughts, but I think it's cool as can be. So, man, thank you for doing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Thanks for saying all
right
that,
when you
yeah.
started, developing the podcast, and this, I mean, I know that I'm just talking, but right when you started developing, I was like, man, that's brilliant that's like right up your alley. You know what I mean?
It feels right.
Yeah, it should, because you're just a real guy. You know what I mean? And you're intelligent, and you're not there's no like facade about you as an individual. You know what I mean? Which is the coolest, like hardest thing for a person, I think, to get to, is to be, who they are. And maybe you're not as comfortable in your own skin as you appear, because most of us aren't. But you are such an intelligent guy that you pull it off well. Just so I'm proud of you, and
Thanks,
just we were talking about Charlie, and proud of him that we are. It's same to you, man. Like you came out here looking to start a new life and develop into a new industry, and you're doing it, brother.
Thanks, brother. I kind of view you now, but I think about it like one of my LA big brothers.
I love it, man. So, that's awesome. That's such a awesome compliment, man.
So we're gonna stop the conversation here, because we're gonna have part 3.
Sure,
Joel.
Sure.
Thank you, my brother.
Pleasure, man. Pleasure is all mine.
Until next time.
Of course. Thank you.
Hey everyone, thanks for checking out the Sam Dever podcast. Be sure to follow us on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you watch the podcast, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/@the Sam Dever podcast.